Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of Inspire to Invest has been brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have an amazing guest today named Alfonso Quadra. I had the opportunity to hear him speak for the first time just a few months ago. And of course, I had to have him on the podcast. So before we get started, I'm going to read a bio about Alfonso so you can get to know him a little bit. And then, of course, he'll help fill in all the blanks for us so you can get to know how inspirational he truly is. So Alfonso, he's been in the real estate investing industry for 27 years, and he's known as the godfather of real estate. In the process, he's built a multi-million-dollar portfolio across North America with a focus on multifamily, as well as more recently land development. He's the founder of a real estate investing education company called Wealth Genius, and I'm a new proud member. And he's also the founder of the Quadra Youth Foundation. So welcome today, Alfonso. How are you?
Woo! Let's have fun. Let's educate. Let's bring people to the next level. If you're watching this right now, you want to get your popcorn, you want to get, get comfortable because you're going to want to stay to the end. Because, like I said, Serena, you're asking me about maybe dropping some nuggets for newbies and things like that. Here we're going to drop bombs. No nuggets.
Well, I'll let you do most of the talking. I think it's obvious that I am fighting a little bit of a cold, but obviously I didn't want to reschedule you. So I guess to get things started, I just want to kind of lay the foundation for everyone so they can understand, what did life look like before real estate for you?
Well, I was in business. Actually, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 17 years old. And I didn't mean to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what the word entrepreneur meant. I still don't know how to spell it. I always mess up at the end. Is it an E?
It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, it's a tricky word to spell. But I became an entrepreneur as a result of becoming a young father.
Yeah.
And that kind of put me on the path and changed the trajectory of my life. At 17 years old, obviously, you're a young man, and I tried to get a job, but the job wasn't paying very much. So I started a business, and quickly understood the power of profits, right?
Yeah.
And that business grew and grew. And by the time I was 21, I had stores all across Canada, from Vancouver all the way to Halifax and everything in between.
Huge.
The problem was I was an entrepreneur. I was very industrious, but I was not financially literate.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to invest my money. I didn't know what to do with my money. And 21 years old, making millions of dollars, and then 24 years old, negative $1 million. I pretty much spent all the money, not realizing that, hey, you know what, maybe you put some reserves away. The money was coming in, and I thought it was going to be coming in forever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. At some point the tap dried up, and I was in trouble. So I'm 24 years old, and I said, something's got to change here.
Yeah.
And so I started to educate myself on real estate. The first thing I did was I went after bios. I started with some bios and Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I just became addicted to these books and education. And what I learned about studying wealthy people, because I thought, if I want to, I asked myself at 24, what do I really want? Do I just want to build businesses, or do I want to change my life and change everything that I've done?
Yeah.
And so I started to read about successful, wealthy people.
Yeah.
And what I realized they have multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
And they're investors, not consumers. So I was very much a consumer.
Yeah.
And lastly, and what I would say the common thread amongst all of these wealthy people was the idea that they all invested in real estate, right?
Yeah.
They all held their wealth in real estate, in assets.
Yeah.
And so that's what I said, that's what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
I made a decision that I was going to change. And I went from being a consumer to an investor. And I invested into mentorship, and and then by the time I'm 30 years old, I'm financially free.
Amazing. Now, was there anyone that guided you through this process? Like, obviously, you're reading books and stuff like that, but was there anyone that you leaned on to get additional guidance when you started to, want to put
Yeah.
these things into practice and take action?
Well, organizations like Wealth Genius didn't exist. I remember
Yeah.
trying to figure this out. I knew that real estate was the path. I just didn't know how.
Yeah.
I was in a dark
How to
place
get on it.
yeah, I was in a dark place because my business wasn't doing very well, and
Yeah.
I wanted to go back and rebuild my business. And I couldn't pay myself a salary, so no income. I destroyed my credit. I'm 24 years old. I got a small family, and so what am I going to do, right? This is before the internet. I mean, not before the internet, but before we were actively on the internet all the time,
Yeah.
and had like to think about having these mediums before. It would have been I would have said you're crazy.
Yeah.
So the whole marketplace was the classified sections
Yeah.
in the newspapers. You know what newspapers are? You remember newspapers?
I do. I went to school for journalism, so yeah, I know what they are.
Yeah, yeah. So if I ask my daughters that, they might not be able to answer the question. But ultimately, these newspapers at the back of all newspapers, you had the classified sections. And I remember I always read through the classified sections just to see what's going on, if
Yeah.
something's up. And I remember seeing, this guy, Tony, he's looking for joint venture partners. This guy, Tony, had hard money to lend. This guy, Tony, had an apartment for rent. This guy, Tony, has a property for sale.
Tony's
And
everywhere.
I got to talk to this guy, Tony.
Yeah.
And so I connected with Tony, and I asked him to be my mentor. And he said, this is not, I don't do that. And so I said, what if I make it worth your while? And then he gave me a number that would probably scare most people.
Yeah.
But I wanted it so much, and I needed to create a cheat code that I wanted to tap into someone else's experience, because everything up to that point hadn't worked for me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like, that was my first experience getting mentorship. After that, I was addicted. I mean,
Yeah.
I've invested, I would say, into the millions in myself, in my personal
Yeah.
development, coaching, mentors. I've poured into myself to get to the next level. Every time I
Yeah.
feel there's a ceiling, I push, and I find myself, the best way to do that, to fast
Yeah.
track that, to compress the time, is to get to someone or connect with someone that has done it before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So then what did that first real estate investment look like? Like, I know your story, but for anyone else that they already
Yeah.
doesn't know you, like, what did that look like going from a
Well,
million to that?
my actual first investment, it was when I was 21. But I didn't do it as an investment. I pretty much, I bought a house as a consumer,
Yeah.
right? And for me, that experience was incredible, because no one in my family in Canada had owned a house. My grandparents owned a house back home where I come from, El Salvador, but that was it. Like there was no land ownership in my family really to be talked about. And my grandparents had lost their house. At some point they couldn't afford it. They had to sell the house. So there was no one in my family had owned a house or land. And so it was really fascinating to me. And I bought it for all the wrong reasons, but I entered the game.
Yeah.
And I'm 21 years old, and that was my first experience with the single. I did convert the basement into a unit, but there's still a lot of money going out, not enough money coming back in.
Yeah.
So I did sell that house, and when everything was kind of like, I'm rebuilding myself when I was 24. I'm negative $1 million. I have to rebuild myself. I sold everything that I had.
Yeah.
You know, I went from driving fancy vehicles to like, regular vehicles and, all of the things because I
Yeah.
wanted to rebuild myself.
Yeah.
The idea was to take whatever's there and then reinvest those funds. I didn't know that everything, all the stuff that I had bought would lose so much value, except for the house.
Yeah.
The house was the only thing that retained its value. In fact, it increased in value. And, I find myself with $93,000 from selling that house. And my first move, and this is why you need the mentorship, because I didn't know what to do. I
Yeah.
didn't have any credit. I didn't have any income. I had no income, no credit.
Yeah.
And so the first thing that I did do was a conversion, right? We did we turned a duplex into a triplex.
Now, did Tony put that in his name as a money partner? Because you're talking about having no credit and obviously like just the circumstances. So was that kind of the nature of that relationship?
No, he just told me what to do. I had to figure things out on my own.
Okay. So then how did you finance something like that? Like
It was
obviously 93,000 is not enough to buy a house.
private mortgage.
Okay.
Right. It was a private mortgage. I didn't even know about private mortgages.
Yeah. And most people don't. So I think
I thought the bank had the money.
Well, that's just it. I think a lot of people just aren't aware of all the different things that are out there because they think, I have no money. How do I get started?
Yeah.
And then that's where, a podcast like this can help educate people, right?
No, I love it. I love that you're doing this. I mean, everybody needs education, and podcasts like this can help someone go to the next level.
Yeah.
Ultimately, for me, it was I didn't want to get in my own way, right? So I didn't know about private lending. I didn't know about appraisals. I didn't know about anything, right? I was like, okay, this is what you should do, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
I took a duplex and I converted it into a triplex. It automatically, I've done a few things. I figured out how to live for free.
Yeah.
And then I've increased income, right? Because you're taking a duplex to a triplex, you increase the income, which means you can increase the debt you can put on the property.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I refied that property.
Yeah.
With a B lender, right? Yeah. But in those days, it was easier to get a mortgage when you owned the property than when you didn't.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was able to pull out the initial investment. Yeah. To me, I still didn't understand what I did. Like, I'm doing this thing. I don't know how I have the property, and I'm walking out of the lawyer's office with a check.
Yeah. I did something right here.
No, it felt like, whoa, like how do people don't know about this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And basically, I went back to my mentor at that time and I said, okay, I did this. Like, what's next? He's like, do it again. Yeah. So, I'm investing all of this money in the coaching, but basically it's just rinse and repeat. That's exactly what it was. I needed to build my portfolio, and I ended up that year with 11 properties.
Wow, that's a lot in 1 year.
My second property was a 7-unit apartment building, and my third was a 10-unit apartment building. Something about reading all of these books about all these wealthy people, what I realized quickly is that no one was talking about the single family home, or no one was talking about the duplex, triplex. Most of them have real assets, real commercial, whether they're residential or commercial assets, commercial. And I knew that I needed the economy of scale, right? In order to speed things up. And so within that year, not only did my company flourished, because I was no longer trying to take money from my company to survive. I was able to reinvest all of the funds, and then and then rebuild the company.
Yeah.
But then I finished with a real estate portfolio and a career, right?
Yeah.
I didn't even know real estate investing was a thing like someone could just do for the rest of their life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that's the thing that most people aren't really aware of. And like you, it's kind of like you think you buy your house, you just need somewhere to live, and you don't
Yeah.
realize how powerful that can be in different ways, right? So I think 11 properties in 1 year, especially starting out, is a big success. What was your biggest learning along the way with all of that?
My biggest learning was um my biggest learning was everything that I didn't know. I didn't know that this whole world existed, right? I
Yeah.
didn't know about accumulating assets. I didn't know about, think about it. I'm 24 years old. I
Yeah.
mean, uh, my world is very small in terms of experience and the things that I've had access to. I've lived in
Yeah.
poverty my whole life. I didn't know that anybody could own these types of assets, and anybody can change their situation no matter where they're at.
Yeah.
When I was 15 years old, I was living on the streets, and if you would have tapped me on the shoulder and you would have said, Alfonso, one day you can have assets, you can have this, and you could be in a position to changing the outcome of your life, I would say you're crazy.
Yeah.
Life happens to you.
Yeah.
But what I realized, there's power in urgency. So that's the first thing that I learned. There's power in urgency. Number one, no income, no credit. I had to make something happen, right? And I think that urgency drove me to success, right? It
Yeah.
just drove me. It's like, oh, like I was trying to figure out how I'm going to survive. Then when I look back, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that first year, I put my head down and went to work. By the time I'm 30 years old, I'm financially free.
Yeah.
You know, I sold that company that I told you that was negative $1 million.
Yeah.
I sold it. I sold that company, and I like now I'm like 30 years old. I don't have to work another day in my life.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I learned from that experience that first year is that anybody can do this.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember
But
asking myself, why doesn't everybody do this? I mean, this is incredible. This can help so many people. It's helped me. I've come from a life of poverty,
yeah.
and I just wanted to share it with everyone. I wanted to
Well,
like shout it at the top of the mountains. Well, I realized nobody listens. You just look like a crazy person.
I think sometimes they can. Like, I think one of the challenges is that people get the job that they're told that they need to get their whole life. And then they're in that job. So they think they've got security. They
Yeah.
become complacent. They get comfortable and stuff like that. So it's like they maybe don't feel like that because they don't have the sense of urgency that you're talking about, right?
Well, it's the story with the hound dog. You know the story with the hound dog? The hound dog is on the porch, and the owner's right there, and the hound dog is sitting there. And there's this person walking by, and they're like, he's looking at this hound dog. He's like, he's the owner. He's like, hey, did you notice that your dog is like crying or something? Like something's wrong with your dog. Is just doing this. And so the owner looks at the dog. He's like, don't worry about it. He's just sitting on a nail.
Oh dear.
And so I was like, what? He's sitting on a nail. Why doesn't he move? Right.
Yeah.
And the owner was like, well, it doesn't hurt bad enough. Right. And that's the way society is.
Yeah.
The 96% of the people out there know that they're living way beneath their potential.
Yeah.
Know that life sucks. All of their job sucks. They don't like what they're doing. They don't have time with their families, but it just doesn't hurt bad enough, right?
Yeah.
They're sitting on a nail, complaining, whining like that hound dog.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they're not taking any action towards changing anything, and so they just end up with this average life. And that's what society preaches, people to be average.
Yeah.
And so the idea is like, to be comfortable is like the kiss of death, right? You can be easily comfortable and things slightly irk you, but not enough for you to do anything in your life, because what
Yeah.
happens is people stop growing, they stop learning, they stop creating, they start holding on to the stupid things that they built, because they're like, oh, I don't want to lose this. And so the
Yeah.
second they start doing that, they are in contraction. They're dying pretty much. If
Yeah.
a plant's not growing, is in contraction. And so for me, this philosophy, it's like, oh wow, you went from 0 to 11 properties in your first year,
Yeah.
to growing the portfolio across North America, hundreds and hundreds of doors, multi-million dollar portfolio. It's all about expansion,
Yeah.
living in expansion, allowing yourself to expand and grow, because that's where you're going to find fulfillment,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Most people,
agreed. I think you need to give yourself that sense
yeah,
of purpose and what you're really working towards. So I do want to understand a little bit more around the obstacles and, even the successes when you look at starting there to where you are now. But before we go into that, we're just going to have a really brief break for our sponsors.
Hey, Christina Wyatt here from Control and Compound. You might have heard the term infinite banking recently. It's getting more and more popular in the real estate community. Well, I've got Darren Mitchell here, the infinite banking guru, to tell you about it in 60 seconds.
So how does infinite banking work? Well, an infinite banking type policy is going to be high cash value. What that means is we're going to grow our cash value inside this insurance policy as fast as we can. This money is going to stay and compound tax-free for the rest of your life. But because you have that, you can leverage other money. The insurance company will loan you 90% of your cash value, but they'll loan you their money. Your money stays in the policy. Their money is automatically loaned to you. You put that money in real estate. You do some great real estate deals. You pay the loan back. You rinse and repeat. The whole time you're doing this, your money's growing completely tax-free, plus you're multiplying the money, plus you have a death benefit. When you hit retirement, what do? Now you start taking tax-free loans from the policy to top up your retirement income, an extra 50, 100 grand a year. That money, you don't pay that money back till death. Then there's a massive death benefit. The death benefit pays off the policy loans, and there's lots left over, tax-free death benefit to your family. That's infinite banking. And at Control and Compound, we are the experts at infinite banking for real estate investors. To learn more, go to controlandcompound.com.
Thanks again for following along with this episode of Inspired to Invest. In addition to real estate, investing, and running my own brand experience agency for 18 years, I also published a book called The Accidental Entrepreneur in October of 2021. This is my story, and it chronicles how I turned tragedy into triumph to embrace my destiny in entrepreneurship. If you're interested in picking up a copy, you can find the link at serenahomesrealtor.com, and you can also find my link tree with all of the retailers in the details below. Thanks again for your support. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Alfonso Quadra here, the godfather of real estate. He's sharing with us his humble beginnings and how he went from, living on the streets as a teenager to becoming a young father, becoming a millionaire entrepreneur in his early 20s, essentially going broke, and then getting into real estate and building this huge portfolio. So you've talked about, starting with that triplex conversion, 11 properties in your first year. When you look back from then to where you are now, what would you say are some of the biggest obstacles that you've faced as you've been scaling your portfolio?
The one of the biggest obstacles that I faced was thinking too small, right? People look at my portfolio and the things that I've done, and they're like, "Whoa, Alfonso, like this is amazing."
No one is saying you think too small.
Yeah, exactly. But I've spent a lot of time being scared, right? Uh, I grew up in a very tough situation, and that doesn't build like self-confidence. That self-confidence didn't come easy to me.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I didn't think that any of this was possible for me. And if you don't think it's possible for you, it will never happen for you.
Yeah.
And so, I spend a lot of times just coasting and in contraction, not even knowing it. Even though I'm advancing, I grew my portfolio, and I had these bursts of energy where it's like, okay, like I can make things happen,
Yeah.
And so, I don't suffer from that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to push everything until, because in my mind, this is how I can live life to the fullest. You can live in true expansion in every category of your life.
Yeah.
And so some of the obstacles is thinking too small, not trusting my gut on certain deals. So, okay, there's the other side of it. Okay, thinking too small, not trying, right?
Yeah.
Or the other side is, thinking you're invincible and not doing the numbers correctly, right?
So that's actually my next question is, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you as a real estate investor? So maybe that's like the perfect segue.
Well, I mean, I could probably spend the whole time talking about. I've done a lot of crazy things. I bought a lot of crazy properties. I'm the value add guy that went in there and into properties with syringes and prostitutes and drug dealers and crackheads, and you know what I mean. That's kind of like how I got my start. And my some of my obstacles were just assuming. I just made assumptions that, I can get all these people out. The government's going to be on my side if someone doesn't.
Not in Ontario.
And so, I made a lot of assumptions. Don't assume, right? What I learned is how to live in expansion, grow, but trust my gut instincts, right? Trust the experience that I have. Don't make assumptions on properties. Don't live in la la land, right?
And back it up with due diligence, obviously, right? You could have a feeling about something and then you look into it and they could go on either side.
So those two are, those are polar opposites, right? Like on one side, I'm thinking too small, right? And it's like, I'm afraid to make a move, but then I get these bursts of expansion, and then I go through these expansion phases in my life. And then all of a sudden, I think that I can do things when I can't, right? And do my proper research, due diligence, right? And so, a lot of it is like, if you take an elastic band and you stretch it to its capacity, when you let it go now, now the elastic band has contracted, but now it's bigger than it was before. And then stretch it again. And then you let it go again, but now it's bigger than it was before, right? So that's kind of been my life. It's like by no means am I telling people like it's wrong to contract sometimes. It's wrong. It's wrong to consolidate, and it's wrong to stabilize. I'm not saying that. In fact, you're going to grow, build the portfolio, make sure that everything makes sense, make sure that you're making money, right? And then grow again, right? So stabilize, maximize, optimize is what I tell my students all the time. Like, yes, you're going to be building your portfolio. My mistakes were, hey, I kept growing without stabilizing. Okay, making assumptions that I could do things and I couldn't. So you got to continue. You got to continue to grow. You got to continue to get out of your own way. Those obstacles for me were huge. The other thing is I would say biggest learning that I had, was it learning or obstacles? Well, both,
obstacles. I guess. Yeah, I mean, it all kind of ties together, right?
Yeah. The obstacles that I had to face were when I had to leave certain markets. So at the very beginning, I was very local. Then I went to secondary and tertiary markets. And then I expanded to other markets and eventually across Canada and the US. So never underestimate the power of a team. When you think you can't afford it, that's when you have to. You have to invest in people. The gap between where you are and where you need to be in life is people. And so one of the obstacles for me was hiring people when I couldn't afford it. It was so crucial for me to continue to build the business, And so I would say those are the three. The first one, thinking too small. Second one, making assumptions. Making assumptions and not doing my numbers. And the last one is the idea of people. Like, people, to grow, you need people.
Yeah. Now, when you think about advice that you've been given, like obviously those are some really good lessons that you've learned. Is there anything that stands out to you as some of the best advice that a mentor has given you or a coach that you've ever had?
The best advice, actually, someone sat down with me and they're like, okay, yeah, I understand you want all these things now. But let me ask you a question. Where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Oh, where I see myself here, there, that my company's doing this. And they're like, okay, so the action steps that you're taking today, are they in alignment with where you are in 10 years? And I was like, no. Right?
Like, hang on a second.
So the best advice that I've ever was given is like, okay, get really clear on the long-term vision.
Yeah.
And once you understand what the long-term vision is, now bring that to the present and make sure that every single decision that you make is in alignment with that vision.
Yeah.
Because what happens is we get distracted. We have goals. We have this false idea of time, that we have all of this time when we don't, right? And we just end up wasting a lot of time and moving away from the things that we want,
and I think it's easy to get swept away, like to your point, that you're so busy taking action on things. I was at an event recently and a home builder from BC was speaking, and he said that now he has one day a week where it's just like for thinking. Like, he literally just has a day where he doesn't book anything, and it's just so that he can think and reflect and plan. And I think that's so important because it can get it's so easy to get distracted and swept away in all these things. And like you said, it can actually take your focus away from what you're really trying to build and what you're trying to achieve.
Not every opportunity is for you. That's what I learned, right? There's lots of opportunity. The problem is the world there's no lack of opportunity in the world. Not every single opportunity is for you. You don't have to jump on every single thing. You need to ask yourself, are the things that you're doing, are they in alignment with the ultimate goal? If they're not, don't do them.
No, I hear you on that. And if it's sacrifices and compromises, like your peace and your family time, being able to sleep at night, like there's that balance between, what you want to achieve in your career and then also the other side of it, right? So leading to the next question, in terms of financial freedom numbers, you've talked about, this long-term plan, and you've got this big portfolio already. So what does your financial freedom number look like? And that could be anything.
I already reached my financial freedom number when I was 30 years old, over 15 years ago, right? My financial freedom number doesn't exist. I have everything I need. I don't have to work another day in my life. Now it's all fun. I'm seeing how far I can take things, and I play these games with myself, to challenge myself and continue to grow and expand. But ultimately, when I was 30 years old, I realized that, life was about fulfillment. And what brings me the most fulfillment in life is to help other people achieve their financial goals. And so, like, I know that, when I had all of my time back, I mean, I was able to be in a position where I can help other people. And I was only able to help people once I had my time back. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to help humanity by helping them become free. Once they're free, they're going to do amazing things in their lives. And that's why I started the Youth Foundation. The Youth Foundation is, it's to help young people learn about financial literacy, so they don't have to wait till they're 30 or 40 to be financially free. They can do that in their 20s and then go out and do amazing things. All of us, we're so capable of so much. Disease and all of these things, these are things that are are not cured, or we haven't found cures for, because we just haven't put all the focus. How is it that within like months we can come up with a cure for COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
It's like when everybody focuses on this one thing, and it's like, this is what we need to solve. Human beings solve problems. That's who we are, right? From like all of the problems and issues of all of the things in life. And so if we can give people their time back, we're going to solve amazing problems. Maybe we get new problems, but ultimately, I think it'll be like a renaissance on Earth, right? So I want to be just a small part of that. I want to contribute to that. I want to help people get back their time. The letters, the emails, the DMs that I get from people that say, that thank me and send me long letters of how now they get to spend all their time with their families, and they get to contribute to their churches. To me, that tells me that I need to keep going, right? And so financial freedom, you asked me that number. I achieved that number. Now I'm more about how many people I can help. That's my mission.
So that could even be your new purpose, is how many other people that you help achieve financial freedom, right? Like 1 million people achieve financial freedom. And I've even found that myself, that, I started participating on different platforms thinking I'll connect to different audiences. And I wasn't expecting that every time I did it, a few people would reach out. Sometimes my day could be half spent just on the calls with people, just talking about options and what they could be doing. And I think there's something really special to know that you've had that positive impact. And it's just, again, that catalyst that might change that trajectory for them. And then they've got this return of time with their family or financial freedom, whatever it may be, right? And you talked about your youth foundation. When you think of the youth and inspiring them, what's one thing that you would tell an investor that's starting out right now?
The youth, someone young?
Someone that's younger. Like you meet someone that's in grade 10 or 11. Like what's one thing that you'd want to leave them with so that they could
try everything? You know what I mean? Like the thing about being young is that you can go high risk and high reward.
You got time to bounce back.
You have time to bounce back. You can try things. You live at home, right? So there's not those handcuffs of the mortgage and the monthly payments every month. And so you can be creative, you can build, you can create, you can grow, you can shine. And that's what you should be doing when you're young, because there is no limits. The limits they come when you're older, because, you can't do this, you can't do that. No, that's not possible. This is not possible. This is not possible. Right. And so try things. The only way you're going to know what you like is by doing what you don't like. Right. And you need to try that. That's the being young is having those experiences. And so my foundation, we do one day workshops, and they're called the Ultimate Teen Entrepreneur. So I go through financial literacy, investing in real estate, starting a business, soft skills like learning how to sell, learning how to stand up on stage and delivering a talk, and public speaking, all the things that, in my mind, those are the things that are going to matter in the next 5 years, because everyone is gone behind the screen, that we're losing those interpersonal skills. And if we can develop those interpersonal skills, those are the people, those are the future leaders. They're like, oh my God, you can talk to people. And so I'm passionate about supporting, helping young people start things. And that's the biggest advice that I would give someone getting started. Start.
Take the
just
first
go
step
and do it. Just figure it out. Like if you can get a mentor, good. If like at the end of the day, nothing should stop you, right? And people like us, well, I would say more like me, old folks like me, we have to think about things. There's too much thinking that happens before we do something versus someone that's young. It's like, the best thing that you could be the best position you could be is having nothing, knowing nothing, because it's a blank slate, and then you could just like input really good information and take all the right actions moving forward. Yeah. Versus someone that has a little bit of success, not even a little bit of success, the average go-to, you got a house, 2 cars, kids are going to school, this and that, you got the average household, and you're afraid to lose that you'll never try.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I guess in terms of quotes, like I love things that inspire people and motivate people. So what would you say is your favorite quote?
Success is what you attract by the person you become. So you want to set big goals, and set massive goals, but it's not for the end result that you're doing this for, right? Like if you get to your goal, you're going to be like, okay, like, if you want to climb Mount Everest, you get to the top and then what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the beauty of setting big goals is to see the person that you're going to become on the way to achieving those goals. Yeah. And so Jim Rohn, he said, success is what you attract by the person you become. Because on the way to chasing these goals, you are getting stronger, you are building connections, and you're attracting all the right people to you. The second you decide to become, that's when you start attracting the right people, the right circumstances, the right ideas, the right capital, the right deals, the right partnerships, the right everything to match the person you've just become. It's only natural.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now, I know we're running low on time, so I just want to make sure that people can connect with you. I know you've got a great platform. You're launching your own podcast as well. So where can someone that's out there watching connect with you and find your content?
Listen, find me on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have about 1,200 videos on there. I don't do content like other people. I'm just kind of like spur of the moment kind of a person. Yeah. But ultimately, if I say anything there that resonates with you, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll include your information obviously below. Thank you so much for your time today, Alfonso. And for anyone watching, remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks for tuning in.
Purpose powerful enough will make you unstoppable.